Second race of the weekend then for the GT Cup Open Europe competitors here at Francorchamps. The circuit that first hosted car races some 100 years ago is about to host the second race and the fourth race of the season, I should say, fourth race of the season for the GT Cup Open Europe after two races last time out at Paul Ricard. You see the air temperature a mere 19 degrees today. We've had cloud cover at various points. We even had a little bit of rain earlier on, but I don't think we've got any risk of that now, as the afternoon has blossomed into quite a sunny and pleasant one, all things considered. It is going to be 50 minutes of racing for the GT Cup Open Europe here for the second race of the weekend. It's going to be Dirk Schouten taking the pole position in this one. The number 53 car from the Q1 track racing team starting alongside Jan Lauritsen. There is Dirk Schouten at the wheel of that 53 car. He will be co-piloting along with Lucas Valkre this weekend. Jan Lauritsen, of course, as always, a soloist. He will drive on his own in this 50-minute race, which of course means the car's pace across the stint, or across the two stints, is a lot more consistent. John de Wilder, another driver who races on his own here in GT Cup Open Europe. He took an AM win last time, but he was very disappointed with it because it was an overall podium. And George will see if he can fight off this man, Eugenio Pisani, for that third spot in the early going.
Certainly will. He's been in good form, though, right up to this point, as we now take a look at the car belonging to Philip Tunkens now, currently sat in 5th on the grid to start this race. And no doubt looking for a big performance here today as well. Also part of the AM contingent too. And he lines up alongside the likes of Andreas Josefsson, who we can now see on our screens here. There you have it, the Argentinian sat on the grid right now. And alongside Philip Tunkens on the same row of the grid. And he'll be, well, with Java Walter this weekend. As you can now see, P7 for Stefano Borghi. And he'll be hoping for a big race as well this time. Obviously, was very much in the thick of things in our first race here at Spa. So we see Glauco Solieri, he, of course, also being part of a big scrap as well, the Italian. Giving us a lovely wave as well, and a thumbs up. We always like to see those. And we can also see further back in 9th spot, it's Laurent van der Velde going solo this weekend. Obviously didn't do so in Paul Ricard, but very much on his own this time. Here we have further down Kamil Perian in 10th as well. The Romanian will line up in 10th place with Fabio Fabiani in behind in 11th as well. There's the car there, number 9, lining up there. The Italian also looking to try cultivate a good start to lift himself off the back of the grid. We'll have to look forward to seeing how these guys get on. Here are the highlights, Adam.
Yes, so race 1 yesterday started by Alex Fontana in the 67 car. He was our pole sitter on Saturday at the inside line for turn 1. Muscled Jan Lauritsen to make sure that he could hold the lead. Alex Fontana building a gap for Stefano Borghi, who'd take over the car. We saw some great scrapping further back between Florentin Sescu and Zanini. Meanwhile, the 66 car being driven in the early stages by Andres, or in the latter stages, I should say, by Andres Josefsson, who would make a campaign for the podium. That was the move between Jan Lauritsen for the lead with Stefano Borghi. Meanwhile, John de Wilder would have to get his elbows out to hold on to the podium position. Stefano Borghi with a spin that sent him off the second spot of the podium, eventually finishing 3rd. It was this man, Jan Lauritsen, though, who was the fastest of all yesterday here at the Spa-Francorchamps circuit. The Belgian racer with a victory at home. He has a 100% record of taking victories when he's raced. He missed Paul Ricard race 2, so that means he's 4 points back from the championship lead, as you saw on that graphic at the moment. But Jan Lauritsen, surely a favourite for the title. There you see the cars now rolling on their formation lap. And we see now the grid in full. Dirk Schouten in the 53 car on pole position. Jan Lauritsen alongside him in the 54. And then John de Wilde there in third place in the 56 car alongside Eugenio Pisani in the older 991 spec Porsche from fourth on the grid. Philip Tunkens in the purple 51 car is fifth alongside Andres Josefsson, who starts today. The Argentine racer was, of course, in the second stint yesterday. Stefano Borgi alongside Glauco Solieri on the fourth row of the grid. Row 5 is Laurent van der Velde. Would normally be sharing with Nicolas van Dierendonk, but this week he is solo. Camille Perrien alongside him. Rounding out the cars on the grid for this one, Fabio Fabiani in the number 9 car. So then, a lovely grid of Porsche 911s circulating around this facility. We're now, though, going to have a qualifying interview.
It was my first time on the new tires, and it felt good immediately, so I could push for 2 laps. I had a 25.0 in the beginning, but the track limits, of course, at Radion. And then after that, I did another lap, 25.2, and that was good enough for pole position. So yeah, really happy with that, and yeah, I see good chances for the race.
Going for the first victory, the lead in the championship you have already, and today a little bit cooler in Spa.
Yeah, the weather turned around, and I like that because yesterday it was really hot. So yeah, and it feels good to be first in the championship. Good feeling.
Certainly was a good feeling for Dirk Schouten in the earlier session. With that pole position, that number 53 car from Q1 Track Racing. And the young man will be looking to hopefully hold off Jan Lauritsen. That should be a really interesting battle, actually, at the sharp end of the order in the early stages. Dirk, traditionally, at least so far this season at Paul Ricard and indeed at Spa, has been a few tenths a lap quicker in open air than Jan Lauritsen. But Jan may be able to take the opportunity, perhaps with some help from the slipstream on the run up to Le Combe, for example, may be able to try and challenge Dirk Schouten in the early stages of this race. Keep an eye on John de Wilde as well. Wiley Wilder may be able to make a move up into the top 2 positions of the race. Eugenio Pisani in fourth position there. That's the third of the Pro-Am cars as well. Well worth noting that. And they now get into 2x2 formation. You see there, the leading car will soon be peeling off as these guys get themselves into 2x2 formation. Very intriguing to see whether Lauritsen can challenge around the outside. Of course, going around the outside at the source is a much more daunting prospect than it once was, with the gravel trap installed on the outside of the corner. 53 and the 54 rolling towards the bus stop chicane. And in a moment, it will be the job of Dirk Schouten to pull the pin and go racing. Field fanning out a little bit. And we are go. It's Dirk Schouten on the inside line in the yellow, green and red car, of course, our pole sitter with the inside line. What can Jan Lauritsen do, though, from second position? Has a look. I don't think he's quite going to get around, but he's trying his best. Everyone else, I was going to say cleanly through, but Glauco Solieri goes rallying there and kicks up an almighty amount of gravel onto the racing surface. I'm not sure his colleagues are going to fully appreciate that when they go through on lap number 2. Third place still with John de Wilde as well. Eugenio Pisani stays in fourth place. Tunkens stays in fifth, but Glauco Solieri losing positions, losing time there, going wide as they all tried to search for position, search for track space on that first lap. It's so easily done. Just trying a bit too hard around the outside at La Source. And, well, George, it is Dirk Schouten at the head of the order. And let's see if he can hold off Jan Lauritsen.
Yeah, Schouten would be very pleased with his getaway, certainly heading around the Le Source, certainly managed to capitalise on his start from the front of the grid. Obviously, though, Jan Larison, I'm sure, will be waiting in the wings. He's literally tracking what Dirk Schouten's doing right now. Further back, John de Wilder holding on to that third place at this moment in time, keeping Eugenio Pisani behind him, at least for now. Obviously, John de Wilder coming off the back of 3 in a row in terms of AM wins. I'm sure he'd like to feature on the overall podium, the podium that he felt got away from him in that first race that we've had this weekend, and I'm sure he'll be looking to try and hold on to this third place, at least for now.
Great scrap developing here, potentially then, as Philip Tunkens holds off Andres Josefsson. Stefano Borgi in amongst it as well there in 7th place. He'll hand over to Alex Fontana a bit later on in the race, of course. Meanwhile, that 51 car of Tunkens staying there in 5th place for the time being, and safe to say that Pisani in 4th place has firmly built an advantage over the chasing pack from 5th downwards, and also Schouten and Lorison have built quite the advantage already over de Wilder. Looks like we're breaking into 2 packs of 2 at least among the top 4, and then there's quite a skirmish going on further back, at least in this first lap. It's 21 minutes of racing before the pit window opens here for the record. So once we get to the 29 minute to go marker in this race, we will see the pit stop window open, and some drivers will no doubt peel in fairly quickly once the pit stop window is open. Of course, Philip Tunkens is a solo driver, so the timing of the pit stop is purely strategic for him and several of the other competitors. And you notice, like the likes of Jan Lorison, he tends to take the stop quite early, doesn't he, as a rule? He seems to get it over with and keep pushing.
Well, he's on his own, so I suppose he can choose to make that stop, and as aside from that, doesn't have to hand it over to necessarily what could be an AM driver, I suppose, at that point in terms of this particular eventuality. Further down, you can see that there's plenty of squabbling going on further down. Of course, Glauco Solieri getting right into the squabble. Further up, of course, we saw a couple of moments where Laurent van der Velde fancied perhaps a chance on Stefano Borgi heading through bus stop chicane, but didn't manage to make that happen. Here's the replay of the start, of course. It was a very good jump indeed for Schouten, who currently leads this race. He led into La Source, and of course Jan Larison unable to unseat him. And then of course we saw Glauco Solieri take a trip onto the gravel trap, flicking the stones up onto the tarmac. I'm sure the marshals were waving their fists at him as he left that portion of the circuit.
Yes, of course, they do have another race to come after this as well, so they're going to have to get the brooms out post-haste. They can't just send the tractor out in the postscript this evening. The marshals, of course, always doing a great job of maintaining this circuit, and they need a lot of them here, with it being 7 kilometres in length as well, so truly great to see that the circuit's so well covered.
We just saw a car go off in the background there. It looked like Eugenio Pisani taking a trip off track. We'll have to see whether he rejoins, but he was in the gravel trap. He was kicking up quite a lot of dust. He was full on all 4 wheels in the gravel trap. So, of course, John de Wilder now has a little bit of respite. He has indeed rejoined, so he did join safely, but it looked like he had a bit of a moment heading around that particular portion of the circuit.
Someone's clearly read one of Paul Frere's books and found out about the history of Porsche and rallying in the 1980s. Of course, the Paul Frere curve here at Brands Hatch, named after a prominent Belgian motoring journalist, Paul Frere, who won a couple of books on Porsches over the years, and it's an all-Porsche grid here in GT Cup Open Europe this weekend. Dirk Schouten in the lead of this race at the moment, then Lorison stalking him every inch of the way at the moment, about even between the two. Jan Lorison following the lines of Dirk Schouten as well, which is surely going to be of benefit to him. Dirk is certainly a bright young driver, and I think Jan Lorison's a bit of a sponge for this kind of thing. He'll be studying the lines, he'll be watching on and going, okay, that's how you do that. So we'll see if he can maybe even challenge here as the race goes on. Of course, especially in these big Porsche Cup cars, overtakes can be easier said than done. They're high power and relatively low aero as well, which of course means that they can be very hairy to drive.
Yeah, certainly a little unsettling. It takes certainly a stern driver to keep it in check, as we've seen lots of squabbles happening throughout the weekend. Of course, the pace has been pretty strong, certainly as far as Jan Laursen's concerned. Of course, currently sat in second place, just coming off the back of another win. And also, not to mention, fastest in FP1 and FP2 as well. Certainly showed a good degree of speed, and is now going to look to try and marshal Dirk Schouten, of course, who, of course, was fastest in qualifying. So we've got a good litmus test here between these two drivers. Obviously, both of them, as you referred to, would be an interesting fight heading into this race. As we now witness the cars head round Pouon, you can see Van der Velde getting closer and closer to the rear end of Stefano Borghi. He, of course, will be swapping that car later on with Alex Fontana, who has certainly got a degree of pace. I certainly would imagine he'll be looking to machete his way through this field, that's for sure, heading through this next right-hander. But certainly now, as we watch Van der Velde kick up the dust, and running a little bit wide there as well with Stefano Borghi, so might present an opportunity for Van der Velde, though I think his trip onto the grass and Stefano Borghi's line, I think, has cancelled each other out, really, as they head through towards the next right-hander round Corpor Frere. Now, as they do so, further ahead, you can see Josefsson, Toonkens as well. They're two of Scotland together, but Borghi and Van der Velde closer together than they are to them, so a little bit of a scrap potentially leading down in towards the bus stop chicane as now they head through this next left now very, very shortly. This one, of course, being Blanchimont. You can see Van der Velde potentially teeing up this exchange now as they head down towards the heavy braking zone part of the circuit. As they do make their way there, no opportunity can be made. Borghi still holds on to 7th place.
Yeah, good run this for Stefano Borghi. He seemed a little bit unsettled in the car yesterday. Speaking of unsettled there, Van der Velde struggling to get the power down out of the bus stop. Of course, there's a huge amount of pressure as a driver learning the ropes, as Stefano Borghi is, in receiving a car that's well in the lead of the race. There's a lot of pressure applied to you when you do that, and sometimes it can be a bit too much all at once. There is Toonkens then. He's building a nice gap now in 5th position over Josefsson. He's not in immediate danger of the move from the driver of the 66 GPL racing car. You see them hopping across the curbs there. Van der Velde, very, very sideways indeed. Nice slow-mo shot there from our camera crew as Laurent Van der Velde presses on, trying to find his way around Stefano Borghi. At the front of the order then, Dirk Schouten at the sharp end of the pack. Still just over a second clear at the moment of Jan Laursen, and he's picking up the pace. Fastest lap last time by, 2:26.7, and fastest again in the first sector on this lap. It seems as though Dirk Schouten is just easing his way into the pace here, but of course, if at all possible, I'm sure Lucas Valkra would thank him to hand the car over with a little bit of a cushion between himself and Jan Laursen, but that is much easier said than done.
It is indeed. Jan Laursen, obviously his main concerns will be making sure that he stays in proximity of Dirk Schouten for when he makes his driver change. So we're going to be watching these two now head down through towards turn 16, and of course Blanchimont as well. Of course, the sun's shining here at Spa, no way as warm as it was yesterday. Of course, we're currently sat, as we saw earlier on the graphic, 19 degrees is how it's being measured here at the circuit of Spa. There's now head down through towards the bus stop chicane once again. These two Porsches now currently fronting the top end, both representing in the Pro-Am category. John de Wilde in 3rd place, representing that of the AM category, and looking to nestle in yet another victory for potentially on the table, should he manage to be successful today, and he can get that podium that he's been chasing as well, because of course he wasn't happy based off the interview I had with him yesterday, where of course he alluded to me that albeit yes, I did win the AM category, but I missed out on the podium. The overall podium, that's what he was chasing. He got so close, really tight towards the end, wasn't quite able to get it done.
Yes, it was unfortunate for him. The last lap between de Wilde and Borghi was very close indeed, but eventually Stefano Borghi just about held on to John de Wilde on that final lap of the race. De Wilde spent the entirety of his stint just chipping away on the gap between himself and the 67 car. Certainly de Wilde, I think, values taking those AM wins, but he values the overall results even more. 53 car, turning into Bruxelles for the 5th time in this race. And just on 10 minutes now until the pit window opens, as we've crossed over the 39 minute to go marker in the race. So we will have an 8-minute pit window in the middle portion of this race, which should make for a very busy pit lane once again. I think it'll probably be a tale of two halves. There'll be a few that dive in immediately and a few that bide their time, take any opportunity they can to do an extra lap or so of Spa before handing over to a co-driver. But of course, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 drivers ultimately that are running solo this weekend. And that means that it's almost a complete 50-50 split. You've got some going solo, you've got others pairing, and that does make for a very compelling dynamic in the second half of the race as some of the battles fan out and others get very much closer together.
Yeah, especially when you got Stefano Borghi as well, and his teammate Alex Fontana. Fontana obviously considered to be the faster of the pair in terms of how they're classified as drivers. And when they make the swap, obviously you'd expect Fontana will get into the fight. You'll certainly have quite a few to get through. Obviously, you've got Josefsson in 6th, Tunkens in 5th. Right now, Pisani in 4th, who we saw earlier on take a little bit of a venture off the circuit. Of course, has dropped back from John de Wilder now by approximately, out to 4.9 seconds as things stand. But you can see that the gap between Schouten and Lauritsen has come down a little bit now by 2/10, and he took a little venture into the gravel trap as well. Obviously wanted to know what it felt like, I suppose, as they make their way up towards Eau Rouge and Rayon. Schouten in the lead, and the gap was 0.8 of a second, but I'm sure when it gets updated, he would have lost a little bit after that little touch with the gravel trap. He might get it all marginalised back in, though, because he will benefit with the air and the pull, the toe, heading up through the Kemmel Straight. And Lauritsen doing his utmost just to stay in proximity. That is the mission right now, because Schouten will have to hand over later on to Lucas Valkyra when the driver change window emerges. As we now see the battles unfurl, it looks like Van der Velde might be on the case of certainly Stefano Borghi.
Yeah, Borghi there with a better run out of Rayon ultimately. Van der Velde was having a little speculative look to the inside at Eau Rouge and then thought better of it, and that kind of compromised his run in the process. But Van der Velde continues to pressure really not just one but both of the GDL cars, with Andres Josefsson there ahead in 6th place as well. Van der Velde maybe considering the AM class podium as he runs a bit wide there at Bruxelles. But be considering the AM class podium, he's 4th in AM at the moment, and Andres Josefsson is currently 3rd in that class, but he's got the buffer of Stefano Borghi there sat between himself and Laurent van der Velde, and that's seemingly in Josefsson's favour at the moment in the 66.
It is at this moment in time, just making the most of it. André Josefsson knows that while Borghi's there, obviously Van der Velde can't make the move on him, so very much in formation, at least as things stand. Obviously Borghi doing his utmost to keep Van der Velde at bay, who looked to be the faster heading out of La Source, but heading up through Eau Rouge and Rayon proved to be the difference maker at that point on the lap. Just over 35 minutes left in this session, and just over 6.5 minutes, just under 6.5 minutes now until the driver change window will be opened up, and those that have got obviously drivers to change, they will be executing those, and pit stops will be applied to those that are on their own as well, as you can now see them coming through Blanchimont and Philibert Van der Velde trying to yet get closer and closer to the rear end of Stefano Borghi as they head through that final chicane, take the curbs on entrance and exit, and will then make their way down towards the source. You can just see how much it bunches them up, to be fair, when you come through that chicane. Obviously a very heavy braking point, and some brake later than others, and therefore it does help marshal down that delta time. And then of course if you get that lovely exit out of the source, which looked that Van der Velde had heading on that previous lap, now making their way up through towards Eau Rouge and Rayon. Van der Velde in 8th, Borghi ahead of him in 7th place. 4/10 now the gap, and it looks like he's nice and close. Might be able to execute something now heading up through this straight. as we now see a little swap further down. Fabiani and Perrion coming together as well at the back end of the order, as now we're seeing Van der Velde try to search, perhaps Hunt get closer to the back of Borghi's car, but of course Borghi might choose to break the aero, and in fact makes the move this time on Josefsson for that P6 spot. So Borghi executing, finding that drag. That was a good move.
Now, we've seen a few times today, yeah, I was just about to say, I think Borghi might be maybe allowing the 66 car through. No, just got a poor run off of Malmedy, but on 2 or 3 occasions now we've seen instances where the car doesn't slow down for Lecombe and cut straight across, getting penalised. So we'll have to see how that's judged for Stefano Borghi. Certainly he is now ahead of the 66 of Josefsson. At this stage in the race, they turn through Vuon for the 7th time of asking in this race. And Van der Velde continues to watch as the GDL guys have a bit of a scrap all of their own. Borghi apparently on top of that. We get a bit of a replay here of Camille Perrion, and that's why he's down to 11th place then. A spin for the 217 car. That's cost him a bit of time. The R01 racing machine has rejoined the race now, but does so quite a way behind Fabio Fabiani, who I think profited off of this moment for the number 217 car. No change while we were looking at that for the battle for 6th place, however. Philip Toonkens will no doubt be loving the fact that these three are so focused on each other. He has continued to build a bit of an advantage, 4.5 seconds at the last split between Toonkens in 5th and the chasing pack. And that's, of course, handy for him as well, 2nd in AM. And 2 of those cars scrapping behind him are class adversaries. Pisani hasn't really been able to hold on to the back of De Wilde in this one. Sits in a rather lonely 4th place as Van der Velde has a look to the inside. Does he? Yes, he does. At La Source, very nicely done. Textbook move there from Van der Velde as they go across the gravel that's been laid down there, not just on the outside of the source, but it's rapidly being transferred into the middle of the source. Van der Velde, though, not finding that to be a problem, through into 7th place there at the expense of Andres Josefsson, who's lost 2 places there in the space of a lap. The Argentine driver just rather suffering a little bit of misfortune all at once there. Of course, once one person gets past you, it can often tee you up for a second.
Yeah, it certainly can indeed, but proving to be a very calm and composed figure. Laurent Van der Velde holding on to 7th. Andreas Josefsson not able to capitalise on maybe a charge through the Kemmel Straight. A warning for Philip Toonkens, though, earlier on, track limits at turn 17. So he would have been advised in his ear, I can imagine, that try and keep it within the track, please, as he now makes his way through. And obviously currently sat in 5th place as well. And he's trying to get into the fight with Eugenio Pisani, who's in 4th. Who, as you mentioned, Adam, dropping back away from John De Wilde, who is comfortably in 3rd place as he stands topping the AM conglomerate. Still currently, though, these two leading the charge. Dirk Schouten currently sat in P1 with Jan Larison, still right on his tail in 2nd place, still within a second. That's the current delta between the pair, with just over 30.5 minutes remaining in race. But now we've got the driver change commencing in about a minute and a half. So this will be the final lap before they have to execute the changes, although at least the window will be open at that point. So we'll wait and see who decides to jump first. One thing's for sure, I'd imagine Schouten will look to go for a longer stint at this point, maybe bringing in Lucas Valkyrie towards the end of the window, Adam.
That would be the expectation. That's what the precedent suggests. Yes, Dirk Schouten at the head of the order here. Of course, you've got to consider the penalties as well, the handicaps applied to the cars. Lorison has a longer, heftier handicap coming his way, and that could prove critical for the chances of both Dirk Schouten and Lucas Valkyrie to be on the top step of the podium in this race. It's an all Q1 track racing team battle for the lead here then, as Jan Lorison continues to stalk the number 53 car of Dirk Schouten. Pops across the curve there at Lecombe. These cars have a bit more suspension travel than your GT3 cars, and that means you do occasionally see them hop the curves that little bit more. even though they are called Porsche 992 GT3 Cup cars, they're not strictly GT3 cars, which is a story for another day to explain. No, this is a moment for Van der Velde, who spent so long trying to get himself up and past into 7th place. He had it for about a lap, and spinning there, coming out of La Source hairpin. That was why we had a yellow flag at turn 1. Hopefully Van der Velde can get the car back underway. He'll hopefully pass through the first sector split in the not too distant future. Top 2 then head through Campus and onto Paul Frere Curve. And this time, either driver has the option of coming into the pit lane. We've already suggested that Dirk Schouten is unlikely to do so. Let's see whether Lauritsen decides to pull the pin.
Yeah, absolutely right, as they now make their way through turn 16 and 17. This will be a decisive moment as to whether they do decide to pit earlier, as we now watch the cars make their way down through towards the bus stop chicane. Schouten obviously in front, in behind Jan Lauritsen. He's right there with 710 separating the pair as they come through. Oh, boxing early now, Jan Lauritsen, so he's the first to jump. Schouten stays out as we expected, and as we now watch the car now make its way through the pit lane, he will then serve his allotted time as via the handicap provided to him. The change is officially on, as you'll all be aware. You can see the timer in the top left-hand corner, the green with change on. And that obviously allows to, well, certainly informs you that the driver change window is up and running. In comes Jan Lauritsen, in for the stop, slams on the brakes, so the team get to work then. Fluids, and of course some work on the tyres as well, making sure that car is up to the mark. And now it's up to Dirk Schouten now to put in some hefty laps to obviously try and cultivate a bit of a gap.
Yeah, you were seeing there that the team's adjusting the tyre pressures on this Michelin rubber. The tyre pressure will go up as the race goes on. You want to just minimise that situation as best you can. In comes the 67 car. Alex Fontana will take over from Stefano Borgi then. And the driver who was comfortably fastest on Saturday is now going to have to work his way through the order on Sunday, and we'll see how far he can get. Dirk Schouten continues on at the head of the order then. Gap between himself and John de Wilder, who has now assumed 2nd place, courtesy of Lauritsen's pit stop. It's 16.9 seconds, and de Wilder currently looking like a contender for a podium, although I think he might have to come under threat at some points from Alex Fontana, and that could be a very difficult defensive drive for John de Wilder.
It certainly could be. We know the pace of Fontana, we know how good he is. Obviously, Alex Fontana in the pit lane had to wait for Florentin Sescu. Well, his car, obviously Camille Perrin was in the car as they made the move. Florentin Sescu jumping in now, and he will then make his way out of the pit lane. But still Dirk Schouten, who we can currently see on our cameras now, making his way through to the next lap. Let's see what he decides to do. Again, I would imagine he would stay out. We've still got over 4 minutes 40 still to go in terms of the driver change, so they will have approximately 2 laps to see. Well, in fact, probably 1 lap and a bit. We'll have to wait and see. Certainly Schouten making his way through. No, decides to come in, not wasting any time. That means Lucas Valkra will be jumping in the seat.
Okay, so Lucas Valkra is going to receive the baton and assume the car that was in the lead. The pit stop for this 53 car will be shorter than the one that Jan Lauritsen had to serve, an 80-second stop for Valkra and Dirk Schouten. So let's see where they come out relative to that 54 car. Into the pits now has come Dirk, and he will now pass the car over to Lucas Valkra. Valkra will set about trying to perform just as well as his co-driver in his stint of the race. There's Toonkens in the 51 car into pit lane, coming out of 4th position. Of course, I think was running in 6th place prior to the emergence of all the pit stops. The 66 car is in as well. Sharper Volta into the pit lane, or rather, Charles into the 66 car once it reaches him in the pit lane after a solid stint from Andres Josefsson. And the Argentine driver making way for the Hungarian racer, Schaber. Glauco Solieri also into the pit lane. The pit's very much full up at the moment. Then just 3 minutes of the pit window left to go, so limited opportunities for De Wilde and Pisani, who both are yet to pit. And Lauritsen just coming past the pit lane now, and it's going to be interesting to see what the gap is between Lauritsen and Valkyrie. Valkyrie has rejoined in front of Lauritsen by the looks of it. The question is going to be by how much.
Yeah, it is indeed. Lauritsen making his way past the pit lane, as Adam alluded to, and there you can see Van der Velde's car make its way into its pit stop position. He, of course, will not be making a driver swap. Van Dieren Donk not here this weekend, so it's just him. There you can see Lucas Valkyrie's car. There's Jan Lauritsen. Quite a gap between the pair. So credit to Schouten. He managed to get the gap in place, ready for Valkyrie to take over.
Well, yes, of course, there wasn't much between them at all as Schouten came in, but it's the handicaps that have worked in favour of the 53 car for this one. That 54, of course, the race winner last time, Jan Lauritsen, carrying quite a handicap at this stage of the season, having claimed 2 victories from 2 races competed so far this year. He was away on the Sunday of the Paul Ricard weekend. Hence, he's not the championship leader at the moment, really. He's been on winning form, but this car is currently the championship leading car, Lucas Valkyrie, and I'm sure Valkyrie will be all too aware of that fact as he's driving along there. He would like very much to try and advance he and Dirk Schouten's lead in the title hunt. John de Wilde into the pit lane then. He was the final holdout along with Jorginho Pisani. He will hand over to Stefano Zanini, while John de Wilde, of course, doesn't have to go anywhere.
Well, it's all the change. Well, not necessarily the change, but certainly the management during the pit stop underway. And you've got Eugenio Pisani coming out of the car with what looks to be as well the change in place. Zanini stepping in as now we watch Lucas Valkyrie make his way down towards the bus stop chicane. Jan Lauritsen will be looking to close that gap ASAP. Now head through towards the final corners, heading through turns 18 and 19 to commence yet another lap with just over 21.5 minutes to go. And Jan Lauritsen now has got to put a big hole in that deficit, of course. I remember it was about 9.8 seconds coming out. It's now 7.8, now down to 6.6. So Jan Lauritsen really going to work, chopping at that wood, bringing it down, and heading through now towards the source. He's working very hard to cultivate a positive delta in between him and Valkyrie, trying to nurse it away. And he's doing just that as they now make the climb up through Eau Rouge and Radion. And Lauritsen will have only one thing on his mind, and that is trying to take that position out on track. Lauritsen now, as you can see on the timing screen, to the left-hand side, firmly in second place. Valkyrie in first.
That gap has shrunk considerably already. You can see that there was the length of the Kemmel Straight. It's definitely not that anymore. Lauritsen on the hunt. Third place then, after the pit stops, looks to be Stefano Zanini in the 44 car. He's going to come under pressure, no doubt, in this stint from all of the drivers you see behind. The 51 car of Tunkens there in 4th place overall. He'd love an overall podium. He'd love to take the AM win over this man, John de Wilde, who of course has come out a bit further back because of success penalties. And between Tunkens and de Wilde is that man Alex Fontana, and Fontana will be on the mission here to try and net an overall podium, maybe even get onto the second step of the podium over the course of this race. I think that if Lauritsen does manage to get past Lucas Valkyrie, it might be a bridge too far to expect Lauritsen's gap to be eroded by Alex Fontana, but certainly overall podium is possible for the 67 car.
It is indeed. The way it's going right now, his pace is certainly unquestionable. He's really trying to close now on Tunkens in 4th place. And Zanini currently holds that 3rd spot at this moment in time, part of the Pro-Am category, as we now watch Lucas Valkyrie heading through this next right-hander. Very shortly, he will take the next left at turn 16 into Blanchimont as well. And see Larison now, once again, showing that pace. 3.1 is the gap between him and Valkyrie, albeit I'd imagine it's a lot smaller now as they make their way in towards the bus stop chicane. There you can see the lightning blue car in behind as they now make their way through this bus stop chicane. Let's keep an eye on this one, folks, as now we see them cross the line yet again very shortly. Lucas Valkyrie with there, Jan Lauritsen for company. Look how quick he's going as he head up towards the line and indeed down towards the source, as we now see it now 2.2 now, as aside from 3.1, which is impeccable, Adam.
4.5 seconds across the lap there for Lauritsen. He's going a lot quicker than Valkyrie at the moment, but we know that catching and passing can often be different matters. However, Lucas Valkyrie is going to have to work very hard indeed to hold off Jan Lauritsen on this occasion. Let's wait and see what happens in that one. Toonkens, meanwhile, has already got through into third place. He's managed to get past Zanini there for the third place on the overall podium. But we continue to watch these two run down towards Lecombe now. The gap is down to 1.3 seconds. 1.3 seconds it is. So once again, it's going down, down, down in favour of Jan Lauritsen at this stage. 18 minutes of racing left to go. And Lucas Valkyrie has his primary title rival in his mirrors at this stage. The current championship leading car is that number 53 and that driver Lucas Valkyrie along with co-driver Dirk Schouten. But their competition, their main competition at this stage of the year, Jan Lauritsen right behind as they run towards Pouhon Bend. Out of Pouhon they go. And Jan Lauritsen taking a much wider berth coming out of the corner, carrying more speed. Is he going to have a look as they approach Fania? He looks to the outside. He's going to dink to the inside. Is he? Can't quite get it done. Very close to the rear bumper of Lucas Valkyrie as they bounce through the corner and over the curbs. Now out towards Campus Bend in this battle for the lead, and Lucas Valkyrie trying to make it as difficult as possible here for Jan Lauritsen as they head through Paul Frere Curve. Now it's the long run to Blanchimont that follows next, and surely this could be the opportunity that Jan Lauritsen needs. Blanchimont is a very tricky corner to get right in these Porsche Cup cars, and even harder if you're side by side. Will they be side by side by the time they get there? No, Lauritsen stays behind for now. He was a bit later on the brakes through there than Lucas Valkyrie. Valkyrie will once again go defensive as they run towards the corner, but no, he leaves the door open for Jan Lauritsen, and he didn't need a second invitation. Slightly overshoots the bend, but the move is made, and Jan Lauritsen is our new race leader.
Wonderfully executed, but I just want to gaze your eyes over at Fontana, who's now up into third, so he's gained a lot, but here's the replay. What a move from Jan Lauritsen, leaving it, well, late heading into the bus stop, but did it just right. The door was open, switched to the inside, and that's exactly what you need to do to execute a P1 manoeuvre. And now currently holds that with Lucas Valkyrie in second place. And there you can see picture in picture, folks. Wonderful indeed. Car number 54 now at the top spot. Here's the view of it again, that instant switchback. There you see it. Lovely stuff indeed. Formidable move there from Jan Lauritsen. Once again, showing the pace that we have seen all weekend long. Lucas Valkyrie could only watch as now he sees that blue car line itself up in top spot.
Gap's already out to over a second as they run through Lecombe. Lauritsen pushes on. Fontana, meanwhile, has got himself up to third place, as George alluded to, so the 67 car is up into third position now. So as it stands, Alex Fontana would secure a podium for he and Stefano Borgi. But can he get any further up the order? Last lap for him was a 2:27.4. And we know that Lauritsen is capable of 2:26s. He did a 2:29 last time by, but of course that was a lap where he was battling hard with Lucas Valkyrie. So we'll have to see what the relative pace is there for Fontana. Again, I think it might be a bridge too far for him to challenge for the lead here, but Lucas Valkyrie, depending on how he picks himself up from this move for the lead executed by Jan Lauritsen, may come under fire by Fontana before the end of this race.
Yeah, absolutely right. There we see Jan Lauritsen now heading through this next right-hander. Valkyrie now a distant memory at this point. Oh, wowee, skipping over the gravel trap, heading around Paul Frere, now heading through towards turn 16, and Blanchimont very, very soon. Valkyrie still in behind, though. It hasn't really hindered Larison all that much, but still nonetheless a scary moment, to say the least. Fontana himself has actually started roping in yet more time. He is really quick, 11.6 now away from Lucas Valkyrie. And if we have a look at the replay, you can just see just very wide, just got those two of the wheels. He got dragged in pretty much with the two tyres in the gravel, and ended up just going off the track slightly, but recovered well, and he still holds on to the lead of the race with Lucas Valkyrie in P2. Alex Fontana still continues to try and cultivate some positive delta for him. There is a warning flag for car 53. That, of course, being Lucas Valkyrie for track limits of turn 4. And they have asked for the car 51. That, of course, being Philip Tookens. The team managed to report to race control immediately. So interesting there as well. Of course, John de Wilder trying to get into the fight, as we now see the cameras pan towards that very same fight as they head through Le Source. You can see there now John de Wilder. This is for the AM battle, the AM lead here at this point, with just over 13 minutes 20 to go, up through towards Eau Rouge and Radion. An opportunity presents itself now once again for John de Wilder, the only man to score wins in the AM category so far this season. Will now look to try and make it 4 as he now goes side by side, this time with Philip Tookens, as they make the march heading up through the Kemmel Straight up through towards Lake Com. Huge opportunity for de Wilder. Does he have it? All controlled, heading through this next chicane. Not this time. Well defended by Philip Tookens. He remains in fourth place, sorry.
Fourth place overall, lead battle in the AM class, as you alluded to there, George. John de Wilder pressuring Philip Tookens at this stage of the race. It's once again an intra Q1 track racing battle here, but no teammately allegiances between these two when it comes to the AM class. And Tookens under big pressure. De Wilder with a good run there out of the Jackie X corner, and Tookens goes defensive as they approach Pouhon. Not often you see someone launch a GT car up the inside at Pouhon. We did see it a couple of times earlier on in GTOpen, mind you. Thank you, Carol Bash, for keeping us entertained. The 51 and the 56 cars, though, keeping us entertained in the now, with John de Wilder trying so hard to get around Philip Tookens in this battle for fourth overall and the AM lead. Rounding campus now, past the karting track they go. Up towards Blanchimont once again, but car 51 has a 5-second time penalty to be added to the race. They didn't serve the full handicap, unfortunately, for the 51 car. And well, this battle is very exciting, but ultimately, in terms of the finishing order, it could well be inconsequential.
Yeah, John de Wilder, though, I'm sure will want the move done on track. You can just see them now getting closer and closer. John de Wilder has certainly been hovering all over the rear of Tookens' car. But unfortunately, that 5-second time penalty, 5 seconds to be added at the end of the race, will certainly hamper Tookens' possibilities of clinching this AM win. Of course, we'll need something drastic to happen. Needs to turn up the heat, turn up the pace in order to keep John de Wilder at bay. But while he stands behind him, rounding the source to make the charge up through Eau Rouge and Radion, this will be a huge opportunity for John de Wilder to potentially capitalise yet again here in this race, as now they make their way up through towards this uphill section. Still, Philip Tookens managed to marshal a reasonable gap heading out of the source. How long will it last, though? Because here comes once again none other than John de Wilder. He's going to get right in the slipstream as they now make the high elevation climb leading up towards Lake Com once again. Can he do what he was unsuccessful at in the previous lap? John de Wilder goes hunting around the outside, blocking off the inside goes Philip Tookens. Not enough for John de Wilder to cultivate the move, but heading around Malmedy, will he choose to get a good run? Well, will he get a good run heading around this particular bend to lead up towards Brichel's corner? You can already see that Tookens once again going defensive, trying to close off the opportunity for an inside line attack there from John de Wilder as they now head through towards the Jackie X corner. What a wonderful battle this is, despite the penalty that has been listed upon Philip Tookens. Enjoyable to see the scraps out on track. That is what we love here at Spa.
Yes, so while this continues on, Alex Fontana is closing up rapidly on Lucas Valkra in second place. The gap was 4.2 seconds as they crossed the first sector split. It will surely go down again at the second sector. So Alex Fontana could be on the verge of challenging for second place now as these guys continue to scrap for P4. It's down to 1.5 seconds. Alex Fontana to Lucas Valkra as Toonkens continues to defend. Of course, Toonkens in fourth place, but with a big asterisk because he has a 5-second penalty to be applied. Wonder if John de Wilde knows that. Valkra and Fontana will be close, but we'll have to see whether or not that move is made. Oh, just getting on the grass a bit there. Do you think John de Wilde's trying? He might be. Valkra in second place behind Jan Lauritsen at the moment, and Alex Fontana third. This is the battle for the AM lead with Toonkens and de Wilde. Toonkens holds on to fourth place. Gap between second and third is down to half a second as of the start-finish line. So it shrunk by 4 seconds in just one lap. Move may already be done. Toonkens in fourth position then as de Wilde continues to harass the number 51 driver. The Q1 track racing guy is having a fabulous scrap here for fourth position. But as of now, John de Wilde would take the AM class win anyway because Toonkens has a 5-second penalty hanging over his head.
Certainly does indeed. John de Wilde now going hunting side by side up through towards the Kemmel Straight. Now this is a huge opportunity to secure it on track here for John de Wilde. He would prefer it that way as they head up now towards the next right-hander leading into Les Combes, but still again, this time from Philip Toonkens defending relentlessly, managing to always find that little bit extra around that portion of the track and leaving John de Wilde with something extra to do now, heading out of Malmedy, coming in towards Bruxelles. Will John de Wilde leave it late, heading around this next right-hander at Bruxelles? Not this time. He tries to go around the outside. There will tee up an opportunity to take the inside line and give a better access towards the Jackie X corner. Still, it's Toonkens holding on to that fourth spot for John de Wilde right on his rear right now. Nothing separates the pair, and you can see there John de Wilde looking to the inside potentially for a move around Pouon. I know we alluded to the fact that you rarely see it here, certainly here in Porsche racing, but nevertheless John de Wilde fancied it anyway, but unfortunately kept at bay by that of Philip Toonkens. They come through now into the next right-hander, or the next right and left, as they now march their way through the Lavagna bend indeed, and now soon to be jettisoning down through towards Paul Frere. You can just see them out of campus, that John de Wilde is still not able to quite cultivate that move just yet, but he will have a chance heading around Blanchimont, that's for sure.
Fontana up into second place overall then, off camera, while all of this is going on between Toonkens and de Wilde. Alex Fontana has moved up into second place at the expense of Lucas Valkra. 11.8 seconds, the buffer between the top two with 6.5 minutes to go. Fontana unlikely to be able to challenge Jan Lauritsen, but of course what he is doing there in second place is taking points away from Valkra and Schouten, and that could be very big for Jan Lauritsen. When they cross the line at the end of the race, it could well be a new championship leader. Side by side again for fourth and fifth place, the AM lead, and de Wilde again trying to go around the outside here. Surely not going to make that stick at La Source, but he might cut to the inside and try and get a good run downhill towards Eau Rouge and Radion. That's exactly what he's doing. Couldn't quite find enough room for the front end of a Porsche 992 on that occasion. Down the old main straight they go through Eau Rouge and Radion, up the hill, over the crest, and you climb again. It's not often you crest a hill and find another hill, but that's exactly what you have here at the Spa-Francorchamps circuit. And look at this, again, Toonkens going massively defensive. He's fighting for this AM lead. I wonder if he's been told that ultimately it probably won't be his. A 5-second penalty looms over the 51 car that would demote him down behind this man, John de Wilde, who keeps hunting him. Good run out of Malmedy for de Wilde. Tries to go around the outside now at Bruxelles, which is always a difficult task. De Wilde continues to try and find a way, and he'll be looking at that number 9 car ahead, and he'll be hoping that maybe that traffic works in his favour. There goes the number 9. Lauritsen in the lead, though, of this race with 4 minutes and 38 seconds left to run. And it is Fontana in second. Fontana, unsurprisingly, is closing in on Lauritsen. Fontana's been really showing what he can do at the wheel of a Porsche this weekend. But the gap between Lauritsen and Fontana, too extreme to summit by the looks of it. Toonkens continues to hold this 4th position from John de Wilde. 6th place at the moment is Stefano Zanini. Zanini in the 44 car. Of course, the first of the older 991 spec machines, and he's actually having a bit of a scrap with Charles Walter out there on circuit at the moment. Of course, that one is actually for position. This one, with the penalty for the 51 car, will end up being somewhat immaterial, but Charles Walter has now gotten past Zanini, incidentally, so as Zanini drops down to 7th place, Charles Walter, the 3rd driver in the AM class, is up to 6th overall. Good driving from the Hungarian competitor. 3.5 minutes remain then for this race in the GT Cup Open Europe, and Jan Lauritsen is our leader of the race at the moment by exactly 10 seconds, 10.014 to be completely accurate. Jan Lauritsen, even with the handicap that he received for winning yesterday, has been very impressive today, as once again, down at the Kemmel Straight, we have Toonkens and de Wilde side by side. De Wilde trying to look around the outside, and this time I think he may have done it. Yes, wonderful move from John de Wilde. And while I'm sure he's been told that Philip Toonkens has a penalty, he wanted to make that move on track, and finally he's done it. He's ahead of Philip Toonkens. Great scrap between the two of them, and John de Wilde has now moved up to 4th on track, has now moved up to the AM lead on track. And with that 5-second penalty for Philip Toonkens, it should be a fairly secure AM lead as well. 2 minutes and 15 to go as Jan Lauritsen continues to test the limits there at Paul Frere Curve. Again, just almost a wheel on the gravel as he came out of that corner. The gravel trap does invite you, rather, if you try and go even 1 or 2 kilometers an hour faster than you're supposed to. And Lauritsen, with 1 minute and 55 left on the clock, will cross the line this time to begin his final lap of the race. Out of the bus stop he goes now. 7.004 kilometers between Jan Lauritsen and victory then in this 2nd race of the weekend at Spa. His 3rd race win of the 2022 GT Cup Open Europe season could be his in just a few moments' time. He's got to get around the circuit once more, though. Lauritsen was with us at Paul Ricard for Saturday only. Took the race win in the Saturday event, and then had to attend to a personal a family event on the Sunday, so decided to prioritise family over racing, which is always nice to see. And Lauritsen has firmly re-established himself as a title contender here this weekend with this victory that may just be a few corners away. Lauritsen would put himself back into the lead of the championship as well. Fontana has been closing in behind, 8.6 seconds now the gap for that 67 car of Alex Fontana. Fontana returning to the paddock here in the GT Sport organisation, of course, as a former champion in Euro Formula Open. And he's marked his return to our paddock with a pair of podiums. I think that's probably well up to his liking. Lauritsen heads through Fagnes for the final time. Fighting the car still. He clearly hasn't stopped pressing on, has he, Jan Lauritsen? starts the final incline of the weekend for him and his number 54 car. Up towards Blanchimont comes Jan Laursen. The driver who races solo in these GT Cup Open Europe events has once again shown why he is a favourite in this 2022 GT Cup Open Europe season. Onto the brakes, and through the bus stop he goes, out of the final corner, and victory awaits, the checkered flag awaits for Jan Laursen, who claims a second win of the weekend on home turf here at the circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. Alex Fontana crosses the line to take second place for he and Stefano Borgi, and Philip Toonkens is slowing. Philip Toonkens seems to have a bit of a problem there. On the very last lap of racing, it seems as though Toonkens, who was down to second in class in AM, may fall further back than that. Valkyrie takes third place behind Fontana, rounding out the overall podium, and your AM winner is once again John de Wilde. Schaber Walter heads through Blanchimont for the final time, and he will round out the overall top 5 and claim second in the AM category. Another good weekend all round, I'd say, for GDL Racing, as their 66 car comes across the line to take 5th place. Leader already back at the paddock though, and Jan Laursen clambers out of the car. I'm sure a very hot car, but a very happy man at the wheel. Zanini's crossed the line in 6th place, and on the last lap, of course, there has been drama, as there always is. Glauco Solieri has moved up to 7th place there on the final lap. I believe he's got past Laurent van der Velde to take 7th place and change the AM podium on the very last lap. Wow, 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 it never stops in GT Cup Open Europe. Glauco Solieri from the gravel on lap 1 may well be our final podium sitter in the AM class of this race. Across the line now, and it is confirmed that Glauco Solieri rounds out the AM class podium ahead of Van der Velde. Tinsescu crossed the line in 9th, and unfortunately Philip Toonkens did not see the flag there. Whatever happened to him on the final lap, it seems to be terminal for his car. Jan Laursen then, our race winner. Alex Fontana in 2nd place, and Lucas Valkyrie rounding out the top 3 in our final race of the weekend for the GT Cup Open Europe. John de Wilde with a 2nd consecutive 4th overall and a 2nd consecutive win in the AM class. That will do him many favours in the championship standings. Schaber Walter there in 5th position. He rounds out the top 5 ahead of Stefano Zanini. Glauco Solieri takes 7th ahead of Laurent van der Velde. 9th place Tinsescu, 10th place Toonkens. Zerbi not taking the flag, but a lap down. And sure enough, Jan Laursen does have the championship lead, but it's by the slimmest of margins. 1 point in favour of Laursen as he continued to scrap with Dirk Schouten and Lucas Valkyrie for the GT Cup Open Europe Championship lead. 3rd place then for this car, the number 53 Q1 track racing entry, the 992 GT3 Cup Porsche of Lucas Valkyrie and Schouten. 2nd place for Fontana and Borgi, the GDL Racing 67 car. Another successful weekend. And Jan Laursen rounds out the podium on the top step. A great win for Jan Laursen today. Let's hear from our winner.
Jan Laursen, the conditions today were more manageable. Huh? The result is the same, you win.
Yeah, today was a little bit, the weather was better to drive in, because yesterday was horrible. But today, yeah, I had a cool race. In the beginning, Dirk was driving very good. It was fun to race with him, and after that, after when I came in, yeah, I can control the race, and I finished good at first. So
you had to fight a little bit to get this 1st position.
Yeah, Yeah, it's in the beginning, yes, we were driving on the pace, and yeah, it's good, it's good.
You make a jump in the championship, so things become very interesting.
Yeah, I won now 3 times. One time I didn't race because of family, yeah, family things. Yeah, so yeah, in the championship I'm good.
Time to party now.
Yeah.
Well done.
I'm sure Jan Larison will party. The drinks will flow at Q1 Track Racing. Let's see why with the race highlights. It was a good start for our pole sitter Dirk Schouten in the early stages of the race. He held the lead over Jan Larison. Meanwhile, they ran out of space further back, and Glauco Solieri was the man who had to compromise. Onto the gravel went the number 12 car. A spin in the early stages as well for Kamil Perrien. The 217 car was pushing on and unfortunately pushed a little bit too far. Meanwhile, Jan Larison held on to the back of Dirk Schouten in the early stages of the race. Larison, of course, into the pits to serve his stop. And that would be a longer stop than the 53 car would serve, owing to success penalties. However, it wouldn't be long before Jan Larison found a way through, dived up the inside of the bus stop to take the lead of the race. Further back, we had a great scrap between John de Wilde and Philip Toonkens. Toonkens, who unfortunately would ultimately not finish the race. De Wilde, after many laps of trying though, got through into the AM class lead on track, and that was a lead in class that he would continue to hold until the checkered flag. The first man to reach that checkered flag though was Jan Larison. Larison continues to show his class in GT Cup Open Europe. 3rd win of the season. So then the podium will be underway shortly here at Spa. It's been a great weekend of racing for the GT Cup Open Europe, for the International GTOpen and the Euro Formula Open as well. Spectators have had free access this weekend, so we've had plenty of fans walking around, meeting the drivers, taking in the sights and sounds of the International GT Open, the GT Cup Open Europe, and indeed Euro Formula Open. And here come the podiums in just a couple of moments. There's Alex Fontana along with Stefano Borgi. And Fontana making his return to this paddock after many years away. In the years since he took his Euro Formula Open Championship in 2011, he has been a crusading force in the world of GT racing, taking 2 Silver Cup championships over in GT World Challenge. Fontana, definitely a very handy pro to have. Stefano Borgi has a very good driver there.
Yeah. Now I feel better.
Just some chat going on there among the drivers.
The fan button, so I was happy.
Polite conversation then among the drivers as they await their podium celebrations. And Fontana will be on the 2nd step after these two, Lucas Valkra and Dirk Schouten. 3rd place today. They lose their championship lead, but they're just 1 point back after the race today. 2nd place for Alex Fontana and Stefano Borgi. The GDL Racing duo with another great performance here today. 2 podiums on their 1st weekend of the season. And our winner for the 3rd time this year is Jan Larison. He performs the clean sweep here at Spa-Francorchamps. And let's now hear the home national anthem, the national anthem of Belgium. they played quite a bit of the Belgian national anthem there. Why not? Home turf, penultimate race of the weekend here. The GT Cup Open Europe Championship leader then is Jan Lauritsen, who sits on the top step. We'll see you next time at the Hungaro Ring.